Good evening, everyone. I'm Tom Kalaga, Executive Creative Director of the New York Times live conversation series, TimesTalks. Yeah. For 20 years, TimesTalks has paired New York Times journalists with the brightest and boldest creative minds from the fields of theater, music, art, social justice, politics, literature, and film. Our thanks to Tribeca Performing Arts Center for being such gracious hosts. I'm delighted to welcome you tonight to a conversation with Academy Award-winning actor Matthew McConaughey, here to discuss his creative process and his new film, White Boy Rick, opening in theaters this Friday. Set in 1980s Detroit during the height of the crack cocaine epidemic, White Boy Rick is an epic, unflinching true story of a blue-collar father and his teenage son who became an undercover police informant and later a drug dealer before he was abandoned by his handlers and sentenced to life in prison. Moderating tonight's event is New York Times Styles reporter Steven Kurutz, who's written about everything from how to retire in your 30s with $1 million in the bank to why facial tattoos are going mainstream. In December 2016, he profiled our special guest for a memorable feature titled The Tao of Matthew McConaughey. We're so pleased to have them both on stage with us here tonight. Please join me in giving a very warm welcome to our moderator, Steven Kurutz, and our special guest, Matthew McConaughey.
Good evening. Thank you. Thank you for coming out tonight.
All
right.
So we're going to talk for about 40 minutes, and then we'll take questions from the audience. Matthew, you have 3 films coming out in the next few months. White Boy Rick, which premieres this Friday. Serenity, which reunites you with Anne Hathaway. Mm-hmm. And The Beach Bum, which features you, Snoop Dogg, and a cocaine-addicted parrot.
Plus Martin Lawrence and a few other
that's right.
Wonderful oddities.
These are 3 very different roles, 3 very different movies. They're all ambitious in their own ways. And I want to ask you first about White Boy Rick. You play the title character's father, Rick Wershey. This is a man who's the head of a struggling family in a dying city during the crack epidemic. How do you go about creating a character? So, you've signed on to the movie. You know you're playing this guy. It's based on a true story, a living person. What's the process from there?
Well, this is based on a true story, White Boy Rick, a story about this young man in the early 80s in southeast Detroit who, again, dealing on the streets. The FBI comes to him and asks him to become an informant. He does. He later gets busted at 17 with over 650 grams of cocaine, which at that time Michigan had passed a law, 650-gram law. If you're caught with over 650 grams, it's life in prison. He got busted with more than 650, went away. This family thought the FBI was sort of had their back maybe and was going to say he's been an informant. Well, the FBI could not confirm nor deny that Rick Wershey Jr. was an informant. So he went away and he just got his first parole after over 28 years, I believe, just about 5 months ago. So we have what's based on a true story. And this was a script that I read, and immediately I said, even if this is fiction, it's worth being told, put on film or television or something, but it happens to be based in truth, which gave it a lot more resonance and a lot more purpose for me. The Rick Wershey Sr., the character that I play, had already passed away. So, and there wasn't much information online or anything to go find and try. I didn't try to do a biography on this man. There's other true life characters that I've tried to, try to emulate, but not this. There wasn't much information on him. So I went off of what was based in the script. And director Nayan Dimanche, at the heart of this story of this youngest informant ever in America was family. So that was my first took, family, father, single parent home. a father, my mind first went to, I know a lot of dads that try to be best friends with their kids, and from what I've seen, when those kids went off in life on their own, it wasn't the best recipe for parenting. That was my first sort of understanding and hook. Then it was a big study into poverty. This was a man, for me, had no women in his life. His wife had left him. His sister had OD'd. His daughter was a heroin addict and didn't want to be within 10 miles of the guy. He didn't have any relationships with any women in his life presently. And he was living, he was trying to buy time with currency he didn't have for his own family. One of these men who I started to notice, he's living on dreams and hopes of the future, but he's reciting nostalgic aphorisms and platitudes of the past. Therefore, he's paralyzed in the middle. And part of that's he was ill-equipped, what he was born into. Part of that's ill-educated. Part of that's poverty, the cyclical part of poverty. But he was going to, the ultimate, the never-ending optimist at the same time. But all he could do was say it and sort of project what he wanted. We're going to open up a video store. We're going to be okay. Because he was living off of this nostalgia back when 10 years ago their family was doing okay. And he figured if you say it enough, and we keep saying we're going to make it enough, maybe it'll happen, which isn't usually true. So I started, that was who I understood of people and parents and fathers that I had seen and knew of and looked at and studied in America. Then I started to go, you know who this reminds me of? John Cazale, Fredo.
Oh, yeah.
This guy, he was the runt. He loses all the time. I've never had a role that I lost every single scenario. Every single scenario lost. And Fredo was a guy who was the eldest. His younger brother usurps him and supersedes him. I play a father who actually, my son, becomes the breadwinner, becomes the head of the household. It was also a father for me that was like, he should have had more consequences. He couldn't toe the line. He didn't have consequences, and that be such. My son, Rick Orsi Jr., goes to the streets and infiltrates a gang, an all African-American gang, and he finds in there much more of an alpha male matriarch on the streets than he had at home, because there's real consequences, which he wasn't getting at home. So those sort of things, and also this boy was this father's champion. I mean, this boy was, his father put him on a pedestal. He was living through his son. His son was more talented. His son was the doer. His son was the one that could get things done. Me, the father, couldn't get anything done. Could talk about it, but fall short all the time. So this was my sad country song. Mama got hit by a train the day I went to jail. And it was over and over and over. Somebody asked me the other day, is this movie about redemption? I was like, hell no. We all lose.
You met White Boy Rick, right?
Yes.
I read that you went to prison, visited him in prison.
Mm-hmm.
What did you two talk about, and what did you come away with for your own performance in the story?
I'm not quite
Just
sure
for
what I
yourself.
came away with for my performance, because again, I didn't go meet him to chase down the biography of his father. What we did end up talking about was family, and how important that was to him. He had 3 children, actually, by the age of 17. He has grandkids. He wanted to know about my family. You could see him just light up when talking about my kids and family. First, I was impressed with him in that, and I've met many inmates and many people on death row and other places that 99 out of 100, I'm innocent. Most of them say they're innocent. This was a man who was saying, no, I'm not innocent. I was a criminal. I'm not trying to act like a choir boy. I'm not coming to you to say, hey, can you tell my story and get me out of here? It's like, I was a criminal. I wasn't as big of a criminal as they made me out to be, because I wasn't rolling as big as they made me out to be rolling. But he goes, for the crime I did and for the 27 years I've been here, the math doesn't add up. And he goes, it's fact, there's many people who've had a lot more drugs on than he did that came in after him that were already out. There were murderers that came in after him that were already out. So that was him saying, you know what, I think this is unjust, but he never played the victim either. And the third thing I got from him is that when he does, the day he does get out, he understands that it's not even money. It's not like you go to prison and you do however many, 27, 28, 29, 30 years, and you get out, and now I did my time. If I have the same ability, I'm as equal to you. No, he knows he's gonna have to work twice as hard to get a job, to assimilate back into society than someone else with equal ability next to him who doesn't have a record. So just who he was gave more resonance to the purpose of why we should tell this story.
And what did he think of the circumstances of a movie being made and a movie star visiting him in prison and talking about his life?
Well, we didn't, I mean, the movie star thing was never really, I don't even know if he thought I was a movie star. I don't even know if he knew. I mean, he may have been told. I don't know. It was just more person talking to person in two different situations. He was very excited that we're telling the movie. There's been documentaries on him. There's been stories on him. He was damn excited about there being a movie told on him. Now, another question I have, which opens up, again, I'm not going to go on record to say I have the answer, but here we go make a little Hollywood movie, and he just got pardoned. How much is that coincidence? I don't know. I'm just saying, it's a great question. To say, when the spotlight is put on, you know, not in a philanthropic way, I'm saying when the spotlight is put on a subject, in some ways, I don't know, does that make some people go read the fine print and go back and look at someone who may be imprisoned as more than a number? You know, I don't know the answer to that. I'm not going to state that I know the answer to that, but the timing is particular.
Well, let's see a clip from the movie. This is the Let's Go for Custard.
Oh, yeah.
No!
Get back.
Get off of me!
Get back in the house, Don. Go in the house and get dressed.
No!
Get inside the house.
Dad!
Stop.
What?
No. No.
Dad!
Ah, Christ. Keep going. I got it under control. You don't need to stop the car, Pop. Everything's fine. Don't get out of the car.
Everything is not fine. A man just ran out of your house almost as my Imperial. You don't have a goddamn thing
I hate
under
you.
control. You're not gonna let her talk to you
I'm
like
going to the
that.
goddamn house. I
Oh,
got
for
this under
Christ's
control, all
It
right?
ain't under control.
Ray, stay out of it. Looks like Richard's having a bad day.
No, Ma, I'm not having a bad day. My son and I walked into the Lion's Den this morning and walked out with the golden fleece. Ain't that right, Ricky?
That's right.
That's right.
You're pathetic! Both of you!
Hey, put some clothes on, will ya? We're going for custard. Yeah.
And
Here's an example of this man living on, nostalgia of the past and dreams of the future. He'd just come from the gun show with his son. They made a good heist. They got out of there with a couple of guns for a little bit of money. And in his mind, today's a great day. And we're going to go get your daughter, and we're going to go out for frozen custard because it's a great day. And he walks into a shite show, and it's not, but he's just trying to hang on to that. Damn it, he's got the AK out. His father lives across the street saying, you don't have this handle. He's like, just everyone shut up and go put your clothes on because we're going for custard. You know what I mean?
you're a father in all three of these upcoming movies, and White Boy Rick and Serenity, really at their heart are father and son stories, and you're a father yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I wondered how fatherhood has changed or deepened your acting.
Good question. And I didn't notice that, actually, that I was a father in these three. And I was told I've only played a father once before.
Before
in
you were
26
father,
years,
right?
was Interstellar. How does it deepen me? Look, here's what I've been reminded with children is we're playing make-believe. So our job is to make you believe. And it's kind of as simple as that in a very childish way. My children reminded me to be younger and enjoy doesn't have to make sense. What's the story? The movies I'm usually doing are not movies that I'm allowing them to see yet. But they all want to know, what's the movie about? Well, I've learned to pitch the movies. I pitch my wife one way. I pitch them to my wife that way, the R-rated true way. I don't pitch them to my children that way. So I find I have to say, who's my audience? And it's very good for actually my job is to go, how do you tell the same story to a different audience? How do you pitch the same maybe R-rated theme movie, adult themes, to my 7-year-old son? Well, I have to make it more of a fable. You know, there's less particulars, but yet there's a family trying to stay together, and they don't have money, and they're trying to get by, and they're not necessarily going by the law just right, but they're hanging on, and they think they may have it, and all of a sudden, oh no, it comes down them, and they don't have it, and the boy has to go away and leave the father, and the father's on the outside waiting for his son. So you tell it in a sort of a more Grimm's fairy tale way, but it's been a very good exercise for me to pitch my stories and things I'm in to my children. Look, there's I can find a hook where I'm not the same, thankfully, not the same father as Rick Wersey Sr. The hook, though, for me that I do have, that any parent has, as you know, when you have children, you die for your kids. You lay yourself down for your kids. You do anything to keep your family together. You do anything for your kids. You put them in front of you. That's an easy, natural law. That's black and white in a world where it's hard to have many black and whites. So that Rick Wersey does have. Rick Wersey Sr. does have. That I have. I've always been interested in love stories that were not necessarily love stories between the typical man-woman love story or a romance. Love story, this is a love story with a man, a father, for me, a father with his family, trying to keep his family together. There are love stories of people with their country. There are love stories of people with their best friend. So I've always just been interested in different kind of love stories. And this one, family's one that's obviously resonating with me now.
Your co-star in this, White Boy Rick, is 17, and he had never acted before. This is his first movie, right? Mm-hmm. What did you sort of take him under your wing during the shoot? Or what advice did you give him about navigating, the movie business?
Yeah, so this young man, Richie Merritt, who plays the lead, the casting directors found him and the director found him in the principal's office in a Baltimore high school. And they went in and they were pitching principals all over the United States about this role of a street kid and, broken family who dealing on the streets. Well, the principal goes like, at the end of the discussion, goes, that's the little you ought to talk to right there. Evidently, he'd been to the principal's office quite a bit. And the director said, you know what, let's take a chance here. Jeff Robinoff, Studio 8, said, let's take a chance here. And so they brought Richie Merritt, who at the time, I believe, was 15, aboard. Never acted before in his life, never had a job. Brother left early in his life, lived on the streets in Baltimore, knew the ilk, knew his ways around the street. So our job, my thought was, okay, this is really exciting. I'm going to get an acting lesson because I can't act because this kid doesn't know how to act. So I have to get across to Richie Merritt. I got to get behind the chest plate of this young man. And what I picked up very early was family was really important to this young man. Anytime, and these are long days. I mean, this kid's never had a job. So we got 12-hour days, and he's going to school in between working, and we're working 5-6 days a week. After about week 3, at 3 a.m. or whatever time in the morning we're working, there were some times where this young man was like, man, I didn't ask for this. I'm tired of people telling me what to do. And I'm ready to go home. And there was a 20% chance that the Richie Merritt, I thought, he might catch a bus back to Baltimore and stay right here. Really, which worked for the role because you wanted the young man to have that edge and independence and the lack of reverence for where he was. And he did have that. While he was happy to be there, he still was like, you guys came and found me. The way I looked at it was, look, I've got to be, as this father was to him, a father figure, big brother, but also Butch and Sundance. Be a best friend to him. So that was the line I would walk. Sometimes it was an arm, a hug. Sometimes it was a kick in the backside that he needed. And I played that as it laid, as I saw it. But if we could get this young man to do what he could do, which was behave honestly in front of a camera and not be an actor, not be conscious of actually what he was doing, not understand that, oh, this is a really big line. This one is a seminal moment in the movie. We don't want him to understand those things. Just be yourself. You understand the scenario that this character you're going through is going through, so just behave honestly with that. That was myself and the director's job. So I just continually was like, I kind of had to come to him. As the director puts it, he goes, he couldn't direct Richie Merritt to convince the world that he was my son. We need to convince the world that Matthew McConaughey was the father of Richie Merritt, young man playing Rick Wershey. So I didn't know where he was going to go. Every day, every scene. Didn't have any idea. So I would sort of parry and adapt myself to just try to get to him. But again, any time where it got a little off track or he lost patience or got frustrated, if I brought up family to him, it grounded him. It brought him right back. No matter what hour of the day, no matter how tired he was, it brought him back. And that was useful for him being in the moment, but it was also useful for our relationship in the role.
Did you have a father or a mother figure early on in Hollywood that took you under their wing? I mean, you've won an Academy Award, but when you first started acting, you didn't really have much formal training, and you became a big star pretty quick.
Yeah.
A leading man pretty quick. Was there someone when you first got to Hollywood who showed you the ropes?
There wasn't anyone who showed me the ropes, but I'll say this about Hollywood. Boy, the first people you get introduced to are the most important people. Because the thing about out there in Hollywood, the challenge is the options are endless. And I happened to go out there when I was 21, when I had some pretty good semblance of who I was, And I have trouble imagining how some people go out there younger than that, because everything's yes, yes, yes. Well, too many yeses and too many options, we all know that can make a tyrant of any of us. And that's a lot of what Hollywood is. It's yes, yes, yes. So the first people I met were the right people. I met a man, Kevin Morris, who's still my lawyer today. His wife, Gabby Morgan, who was my agent there for a while, still friends with. They introduced me to good people. And I built a pretty good little social circle pretty easily. I had the cast of everyone in Dazed Confused who I'd worked with between my junior and senior year in college, who were actors in Hollywood who I hung out with. And those are people that invited me into my first movie when I had 3.5 lines and gave me 3.5 weeks work, because they invited me into the storyline. They wrote me into the storyline. So I got fortunate. I met people that were the right people. It wasn't until really 1997 that I started to have the courage, or that day I had the courage to say, okay, I've got some natural ability, I've got instinct for this, but I need to, as my buddy and I said, lower my handicap. And that was Don Phillips, the casting director who found me in Austin when I began. And he introduced me to, he goes, you need to go talk to this lady, Penny Allen, who has since passed away. And that's when I really started to understand what my craft was, what my rights were, how to study, how to work, how to get yourself out of trouble if the scene wasn't going well. And I worked with her for 19 years. She's a New Yorker. Classic badass. Yeah, so that's when, and then she became someone who I went to just religiously.
You talked about 97, right around that time, you did Dazed and Confused in 93. I think it was 96, Vanity Fair was putting you on the cover of a magazine and calling you the next Paul Newman. That crazy twist of fate and the way your life was speeding up at that time, how did you get through that, without losing yourself?
Yeah.
Did you have a maxim or something you...
Good question. So look, I remember being in, I went to like Gelson's or something and bought my groceries, and I remember being in the grocery line and looking over to the left, and I was on 3 magazine covers. And I remember going, and right after I went, oh yeah, I'm buying one of those each. So I had a fun attitude about this, but I did become a bit unbalanced. I couldn't help, all of a sudden, I didn't meet strangers anymore. All of a sudden, I had no anonymity. All of a sudden, I had heard more people say, I love you. And I was like, man, I've only had, I got 4 people in my life that say that. Everyone out here says that. And I was like, and they must mean it. You know? So I remember saying, you know what, time was feeling a little bit mashed. The events were feeling a little bit like they didn't have a transition to the next. The day or a junket was feeling like, my life was feeling like it was a little bit one note, and it didn't have a pause, it didn't have a spot to hit reset between events. And I wasn't experiencing events, I was kind of just going through them. And I even give myself a rule, man, I'm kind of numb right now. I'm just gonna go be a gentleman and don't lie. Okay, McConaughey, just go be a gentleman and don't lie. Well, that's a good maxim, but it also can make for a pretty boring interview, you know? And so, but I got through it, and I remember saying, you know what, I gotta get out of here, meaning I need to go spend some time with me. And it was a scary supposition, but I had a recurring dream, and half of the dream took place on the Amazon River. So I put on a backpack and got a one-way ticket to Lima and didn't return for 22 days. But what that trip did for me was I went to a place where I was anonymous. I went to a place where I did meet strangers. I went to a place where memory could catch up with me. I went to a place where for the first 13 days, I could not stand my company. I was so sick of myself. Sleepless nights. And then, man, I had one good night of that, you call it Montezuma's Revenge or what have you, where I broke a sweat and threw it all up, took off everything that was a moniker that said I was a McConaughey or an American or this or that. And I was like, no. And had it out and woke up the next morning light as a feather. And even all the Peruvians who didn't know me from John Doe, they were like, Mateo, levante limpio esta mañana. I mean, you were very light this morning. And I was like, and then I had the trip, and then I learned some lessons about, you know what? You know, we all got to figure out how to get along with ourselves, because there's really only one person we're stuck with. And started getting along with myself after that.
Something you had told me before that I was surprised to learn was that you didn't start watching movies until your late teens, or watch them a lot, and you didn't watch much television besides Redskins football growing up.
Redskin fan? Want to know, man? Want to know.
And the reason you said was that there was no winter in your family.
No.
It was only summer. Could you unpack that? What that means?
So my mom and dad, and I've got 2 older brothers. Mom was a teacher for 39 years, never had her certificate, just BS'd her way through it all. And was such a good teacher, people loved her so much that she kept going, yeah, the certificate's coming from the other school I came from. Yeah, it's coming, it's coming. It never came, but then she was the most popular teacher, and people sat in her and was like, she's a great teacher. She was just winging it. So we weren't like the TV. We weren't like dinner time was a special time. You sit down, you tell the stories of the day. Then after that, we would go play ping pong in the garage or something, but we weren't media people. We didn't go to the movies. I think the first film I saw was King Kong, the one introducing Jessica Lange, Dino De Laurentiis. Still arguably the best movie experience I've ever had at that age, watching that and believing that King Kong and Jessica Lange could have actually made it. But we didn't. Mom would always have a deal. She'd say, like, why would you want to, don't you watch somebody do something for you on a screen when you can go out there and be it yourself? So it was like, get outside. And it was a rule, like, man, if it's daylight, you're outside. But we, at the same time, we were not a reading family. We weren't. It was like, get outside and go experience and write your story. And that's what Mom put on us. So when I say there was no winter times, we were pretty much raised, you create your own weather. And it's summertime. It's summertime 12 months of the year. I don't care if it's storming cold and raining. You better get out of bed happy that you got scrambled eggs on the table. And if you don't, get your butt back there to bed and wake up on the other side of it. She said this thing, you're going to see the rose in the face or the dust on the table. What are you doing? And then her big one was this one, which was, was a great one. You gripe, even if you were in a bad mood. I mean, you weren't even allowed to be in a bad mood in our family. You couldn't go to bed with a regret. If anybody got in a fight, it didn't matter if it was school night. You stayed up till 3 a.m. and you had it out until you went to bed, both forgiving each other, done. We're not talking about it again, we've handled it. But even if you're in a bad mood, she'd be like, you're acting like the kid with no shoes. I'm going to introduce you to the boy with no feet. And you'd be like, oh, shit, Mom. So it was a great, it's in my DNA. At the same time, what I've noticed, and I talked to my mom about now, is I was like, Mom, one of the downfalls of not having a winter is when you do screw up, you never allowed us any time to go sit there and actually have some inside time, some introverted time to go like, what do I want to change about that? So we kind of repeated screw-ups a lot because it was always the summer. She was like, to this day, will be like, yep, and you do that until you realize it's not really a screw-up. That's Mom, and that's still her to this day. Her favorite word is yes. I asked her the other day, I said, she's 86, how you living so long, so healthily? She goes, I just really can't imagine not being here.
I want to talk a little bit about The Beach Bum,
Yeah.
which it's directed by Harmony Korine.
We've got an art show here tonight, which I'm going to after this.
It's a really wild movie, and you play this guy Moondog. I'm not even quite sure how to describe him, but can we play the trailer for?
This is the teaser, right?
The teaser trailer, yeah, for The Beach Bum.
Give me a Lucky Lotto and a cigar, would you? Sure. You don't sell acid, do you? No. That's too bad, man. I write poetry. I like to have fun, man.
Moondogs from another dimension.
Moondog? You look like shit.
I look like I always look.
What is wrong with you?
I'm fine. Life's a fucking rodeo. I'm gonna suck the nectar out of it and fuck a raw dog till the wheels come off.
One thing I wondered when I saw that movie was, were the joints that you were smoking in that movie prop joints, or were they?
Most of the time.
Most of the time.
Let me tell you a quick little story on that. I did get snooped one night. Oh man, I gotta tell this story. So it's our first scene with Snoop Dogg, and it's I come back from the Keys, and he's been a great neighbor, and he married my daughter off, and I go to his house for a party, and he's got the magic weed that helped him write all of his greatest hits, and I'm a writer who's got some writer's block, right? So he comes over, and the scene is he's gonna share this magic weed with me, and he's gonna say, man, this is what you need, man, da 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 da. Well, I make sure I've got my prop weed, my prop joints, right? It's all set up. He knows, I know, props know. Action. We go to the scene takes about 7 minutes, and I mean, we pass the joint back and forth probably 5 times. All of a sudden, it's cut, and he goes, yo, Moondog, that ain't prop weed, that's Snoop. And I was like, here we go. For the next 8 hours of shooting, I did not speak a word of English. I made great different mammalian sounds from the deep. I look forward to seeing what the scenes look like, but I know they're not going to make much sense. But the great thing about this was this story, and working with Harmony, who's a great impressionist, it was clear early on. This was all about all rhyme, no reason. I was the music, Harmony was the DJ. And me being such a logic guy, it was great to just throw logic out the door, and it's a great experience in joy, anarchic joy that this character has, and it was a 6-month Saturday night.
Going back to what we talked about earlier about building characters, was Moondog drawn from anybody you had met in your travels, or a high school buddy, or someone you knew?
It was an amalgamation of a few people. I mean, he's a poet, an anarchist, a trickster, but it was the joy with which he saw life as a dance, whatever reverberated back, whether it was something that we would all consider happy and joyful, or whether it was someone knocking him over the head with a 2x4 or losing all his money, he immediately would see that as the next beat in the music. Not good or bad, just part of the joy, part of the poem of life. And sometimes it's bloody, sometimes it's ecstatic, but it's all part of the music. And so he found immense joy in everything that he goes through. And it's a real experiment that when you come away from watching it, I found myself going, geez, am I really free? Because this guy is free. And then, for like the dialect and stuff, it was two guys. There's a guy I met, Captain Steve, down around Nevis, a little island down off the Keys, and he's a guy I met who he had a wife, Irene. He was kind of he used to be a smuggler, man, but he had these slits in his the two creases right here in the mouth. They always had saliva stuck in them. And he always talked like this, man. And anyway, this guy, I talked to one, I was like, how did you and Irene meet? They've been married for 28 years. He goes, I was working offshore down on an oil rig, man, off the Keys for a summer. And we'd go into town, and I'd slip by this little, topless dancer bar, man. And back in the back, man, there was this one girl, Irene, man, and these fishnet stockings, the greatest legs I've ever seen, man. And I kept asking her to go out with me and go have some lunch on my boat. She said no every time. Well, but the 8th weekend I came back and asked her, she finally said yes. So Sunday, man, I picked her up, took her out on my boat for lunch, pulled out in the bay, and I just kept fucking going, man. Kidnapped her. He kidnapped her, took her around the world. They got married in Spain. Like 2 months after, and they were still together and had a great daughter named Pearl. So Captain Steve was a bit of the incentive. And then also Tom Petty. Yeah. Hello, Tom Petty. Yeah. The great Tom Petty, yes.
I was looking over your filmography, and I noticed, or rather I didn't notice, any superhero movies. And those movies have just dominated Hollywood the last several years. And I wondered, have you been offered to play, Ant-Man or and turned it down? What do you think of those movies?
Well, first off, let me say this. I'd wanted my superhero movie, and they didn't want me. And that was Incredible Hulk. That's my guy.
You would have played the Hulk.
Ah, I love the Hulk. That was one of the hours of TV we did get to watch. And mine was Incredible Hulk, when it was Lou Ferrigno on TV in the series. Anyway, couldn't get that one. I've been offered a few. I'm not going to say the names of which ones they were. I didn't end up doing them. I just haven't been. I've been interested in dramas and roles that I can hang my hat on humanity. And I've seen some good superhero movies. I got nothing against them. I've seen some good ones, some enjoyable ones. I just really enjoy. I've been trying to choose things that I want to go have an experience in the doing of the work. I want to be scared of the role in the right way that I'm going to take on, because I'm not sure where it's going to go, but I'm going to trust that I'll come up on the other side. And that's just been what's turning me on,
Speaking of modern life, the other thing I noticed is that you're not all that active on social media.
Right.
And I wondered how you kept up with the Kardashians.
How are they doing?
No, but I mean, has it changed being an actor? Are you supposed to do that, and it's just not your bag?
I don't know. You're supposed to. I mean, it's just, look, I'll be honest, man, I don't want to have a conversation and hear everyone's opinion. I want to have I'm kind of selfish. I want to have a monologue, or I want to have a discussion with people that I want to have a discussion with. Yeah, I'm open to new friends, but I'm not looking for new friends. I got a family. I got a wife. I'm trying to do my best, and I got good friends, and I do my best. I still wish I had more time with them, even if we're saying that's 12 people in my life. I wish I had more time with the people that already know and care about. I'm not interested in spending that amount of time of, hey, what's up? You know, what's up? Or, hey, what are you doing, man? Well, if you're not here, then you're not here. I mean, I also enjoy relationships that I have with people in my life from, you know, a 50 millimeter lens. I have very few people that I have 150 millimeter lens relationship with. My wife, thankfully, is one. You know, there's people, some people get more interesting the closer you get. There's some people in our life where it's nice to run in them twice a year. And we don't need any more, and it's cool. It's kind of nice. I probably have a certain reverence for you, and you have a certain reverence for me that might not look as cool when we get closer. So let's just keep it that way, or whatever. I mean, I'm not that open. It's too. I like long form. Here we are talking for 40 minutes. Context is important to me in the conversation and to who I'm talking to. Today, I learned this term from my publicist yesterday, clickbait. Yeah, just like everything seems to be clickbait, and I'm not really interested in clickbait. A lot of it to me is soft porn, and I'm not really that interested in soft porn.
When you're not filming, what's a perfect day for you?
Ooh, when I'm not filming, what's a perfect day for me? Well, I'll tell you this: when I'm not filming, I find it, and I haven't filmed. I haven't had my day job of acting in the last 9 months, and it took a lot of courage for me to take some time off because I do love to work. And about 2 weeks after work, I start feeling like it's time to go to work again, and I've actually taken some time off. Interesting. You may have to bring me back to your initial question, but this is interesting. So 12 years ago, when I made a career change to say I'm going to stop doing what I've been doing and go into some movies and stories that I'm really interested in, that turn me on, that scare me, I noticed that I was like, boy, my real life is much more exciting, vital, scary, exciting than my career. And I remember going, well, if it's got to be one way or the other, that's a good way. But I said, well, let's see if we can go do some things in our career that scare us and challenge us enough and are vital enough that at least compete with my real life. Part of the reason I took some time off now is it kind of hit me that I was like, my life's still very vital and stuff, but I felt like I was starting to feel like, man, maybe my career was being more vital and more exciting, more scary in ways. And I was like, that's okay, but let's go recalibrate this back to, not the other way, but let's go recalibrate this and stop and spend some more time with myself, spend some more time with my family, and take some time off to, give the justice to what I've got going on in real life. A perfect day. Perfect day, see the kids in the morning before they head off to school, hang out with my wife there for a couple hours. I like to wake up slow. Have some tea in bed with her. Talk about our day, talk about maybe even our last week or what we're thinking about here in the future, personally, independent of each other, and then talk about what we're thinking about together. Head out for a paddleboard, Lake Austin. Go get some sun. Go get a little break a tad of a sweat. Come on back by on the way home, because the way home's always easier, because you know you're going home. Stop by Ski Shores, get a couple of fish tacos and a beer, coming around 4:30. Come on back, drive the truck back to the house, see the kids back at the house, go out in the yard, kick the ball around, put on some music, maybe wrestle with all the kids, do some dancing, what have you, cook a meal, have a bottle of wine, have some Long Branch, put the kids to bed, stay up, talk to my wife, maybe we catch something, maybe we catch a movie, maybe we catch a sporting event, TV, or maybe we don't do either and we just sit up and dance.
Sounds like a nice day.
The thing is, those dancing nights, they can lean on into 3 a.m. So that next morning, It's bye to the kids going to school, and that paddleboard may be pushed a little bit later.
I have one more question, then we'll turn it over to the audience. I want to ask you about another iconic role, and that's, I guess I'd call the Lincoln guy. I think I speak for all of America when I say that those commercials are really clever, and they're also really mystifying. You know.
Wait, why is that funny? Wait. Everyone agreed on mystifying.
Yes.
But why is that funny?
You know, the guy's always driving.
Yeah.
Usually it's at night on an empty road. You know, it's like, is he going to someplace or trying to get away from someplace? Would you just shed some, first of all, do you write those commercials? And secondly, would you shed some light on what's going on with that guy?
Well, let me tell you the experience chronologically of what actually happened with those. So we do the first ones, and we had met. Lincoln's been great in relationship. When I came on, I was like, look, I'm going to be me. You know what I mean? And they were like, that's why we're talking to you. Authenticity, and we're authentic as well. And so I was like, okay. So the first ones I did with the director, Nicholas Winding Refn. And it was coming off of, I think I'd done True Detective, and I was I guess somewhat in Rustin Cole's head still. And so I drove, and I just started talking to myself. And they were like, great. And I was like, great. What'd I say? Yeah, okay, you like that? Good. Well, those got parodied all over the place, which was good for Lincoln business. And I was like, I'm fine with it. I was the author. I said it, you know? I haven't seen the parodies, but I know what I said. And Lincoln sales jumped 14%. It had awareness that jumped up. And then as we've gone on, the goal has been to say, okay, define Lincoln as the luxury brand. And working with them and the ad agency, they never, we agreed, they never wanted me to go look in the camera and go, that's why I drive a Lincoln. You know, they were always for no, we want you to be you, take your time as you do. And if we could reduce my dialogue down to a wink, they were like, great, you know? And so we really worked to establish style, luxury, authenticity. They are, I guess, what'd you call them? Mystifying. I'm just, there's a deliberation to them, and a deliberation to my movement in them, and a deliberation to the cutting, deliberation to the music, that, we early on said we want to do something that actually cuts through the noise like a knife through butter. We looked at all the commercials that are louder in your face, and we were like, let's do our creative damage by being the opposite of that. Let's be the one that's quiet in the middle of the game after you've seen all the commercials, and let's have you look, because wait a minute, it just got quiet. And the music went to every 8th beat instead of every 2nd beat. And I've got to listen. And they worked. So we've continued the series of them. I work with Lincoln about what is it we're trying to sell. We got a whole new campaign about what we're trying to sell now, the Lincoln experience outside of the car. And so we get together. They collaborate with me. I collaborate with them. I don't do anything that goes against my grain, and I still try to sell their grain. Mystifying, huh?
All right, so we're going to take questions, and there's going to be microphones on either side of the aisle here. If you just line up, and try to keep your questions brief and no asking for hugs.
Richie. Is that Richie? Looks just like Richie. Same hair as Richie. Right there.
Hi. Do you feel like roles you play change you? Hi, here.
Where are you? Yes, ma'am.
Hi. Do you feel like roles you play change you as a person, that you take something from every movie?
Do I feel like the roles change me and do I take something? Yes. Look, my wife would say she feels like, she's sleeping with a different man every role I go play, and she doesn't mean that literally, and that word method gets thrown around. How are you method? I don't know. I don't really know how to explain what that is. I'm still me. I mean, every role, this is another thing. I'm trying to find in every role that part of me. You know, what part of me do I need to turn up the volume on that is more this character? What part of me do I need to turn it down? So I'm finding I'm just living more prominently through that side of me that's in the character that I play. So, yeah, I'm experiencing somebody else, but I'm experiencing me. I mean, we all do it. I think whether we know it or not it's going through us, the vessel. So if it's a character and someone goes, oh, that's so unlike you, I mean, no, it's a part of me. It's a part of me I can understand. Even if it starts off with going, boy, I don't know how this is me at all, but I know somebody who it's like. Well, as soon as I start to notice someone who it's like,
does it become you?
It all of a sudden starts to go, oh, I do see that side of myself. Mm-hmm. So yeah, there's some that, look, I want to hang on for longer. There's some that when I'm done, I'm like, oh, I don't want to lose that. You know, like finishing up with Moondog and Beach Bum. One of the great lessons I learned in that is like, it was reminding that is any time is a good time to dance. And that still holds true. And I'm like, let's not forget that, McConaughey. You know, coming out of Rust and Coal, the head, that space, I love the head space. I wouldn't want to live there though. With, you know, in that man's mind, it was a prison in some ways, even though it was brilliant. But you know, and then times like Dallas Buyers Club, I was clinically scientific, outside, off the set with that, almost to an extent where my wife would be like, "Would you have a glass of wine and just take the edge off?" Yeah, but I'm right. I know you're right. That's great. That's great. Quit being right. You know what I mean? So I mean, there's different. I'm turning up the dial. It sort of feel like I'm at the mixing table, you know. But it's a part of me, and I try to carry all of them with me somehow. They're all in me.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Can we get one from this side here?
Matthew.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi. I started following you when you first did A Time to Kill, and I felt that was a very powerful movie. Mm-hmm. Then I found out you were a burnout in Dazed and Confused, which I loved just as much. And then after that, you ended up going into rom-coms. So how do you feel that A Time to Kill leveraged you into your career today?
Well, A Time to Kill, look, first film was Dazed and Confused.
I know.
So I go back to school after Dazed and Confused, graduate college, come out to Hollywood, get to meet with an agent off of the work I did in that, learn the right way to work, and started getting some jobs from there. But Time to Kill was the first lead where the Friday before, walking down the promenade with 400 people on it, 397 weren't looking at me. 3 girls were because they thought I was cute. Well, Monday, after that opened, it flipped. 397 were looking at me, and 3 weren't. And trust me, I was wondering if I had a booger my nose, my flowers. I didn't know. It was a turner up thumb. It just, the mirror flipped.
You had the talent, and you showed it in A Time to Kill.
Well, it came up, but that was when I became a celebrity or known overnight. I talked about it earlier. That's when I quit meeting strangers. That's when they had no anonymity. But that's also when, check this out, the Friday before, 100 scripts, and I want to do them all. I'll do any of them. But only 2 were offered. Monday after, I still want to do them all. 98 of them are offered. Oh man, 3 days ago, I would have done any of these. And now I'm asked to sit down and look at every one of these and sit down with myself and say, which one do you really, Matthew, want to do? It was a little overwhelming. I think I rode the bull well at that time. As I said, I did a smart thing by checking out and make sure I checked in with me to who I was in the middle of all this. But I learned I had to go through a transition there of remember, as I said, the 100 scripts, I would have done any of them. There was a privileged position. Are you kidding me? How did I get here? This is great. Do I deserve this? I'm so happy to be here. But I had to mature past I'm so happy to be here to, yeah, I'm happy to be here. But I've got discernment and I've got choice. And I'm being fair and respectful to it, but I'm not going to have so much reverence where I'm not asking what I want to do. So I had to get respect for myself, understand my craft, while still maintaining respect for the position I was in. And that took some time.
Thank you very much.
Cool.
Hi. I was wondering, do you ever experience, if you ever go through any doubt, like as an actor, or if you're working, if you have a doubt in your head with what you're doing, like with a project or anything, how do you push through that and just keep going?
Yes. Well, one, I have a theory that I try to apply in my life, which is when faced with the inevitable, get relative. So if I've already committed to a project, and maybe I'm having lack of confidence or doubts, first I go to, have I done enough work? Can I work my way through the doubt? Maybe I haven't done enough work. Maybe I haven't opined enough and done enough work for my character to get past a doubt and to get into places of affirmation and confidence. That usually handles it. Is I just need to dig deeper and find the truths and find the options and find the many ways to go forward and feel confident about it. If that doesn't work, then I've got to look around on the outside. Is there something in the situation, in the relationship with the director? A lot of times you're like, I'm not getting it, I have doubts about this. And you're like, the other person who's smart working with you, the director goes, yeah, I agree, this scene sucks, it's not written well. And that's when you go, okay, good, geez, I was having doubts. Well, you're having doubts for good reason. The scene's written crap. So we got to go to work on that and fix that scene. Usually there's a way to work my way through it. Now, I always have doubts going into a project. As I said earlier, I want to be scared by a role where I'm feeling like I can dive in. I don't know. I trust I'm going to get to the other side, but I'm not sure I'm going to get there. Just because that turns me on, that fear. But that's a good fear. There's other times I got a fear, and it's the bad fear, the one you should back away from something for, because you're like going, I don't think the pedigree around this is up to snuff for me. Oh, it's a great character, but this script, the story just doesn't really work. There's certain things, there's little warning signs that come up, and I'm always willing to collaborate and work through them, but you can't talk your way into it sometimes if it's not there, and if someone's not willing to go work and make it get there for you. That's probably how I deal with it. But I'm scared every day I go to work. I have some doubt, and as we all know, some doubt's good. You can still have doubt and confidence, but also if I feel like I've done the work, I have much more confidence.
Even if you're like starting out as an actor,
Well, starting out, you got to have doubt. But the main thing I would say is take the risks. I'm talking about the risk to fall on your face and make a complete fool of yourself. Yeah. And I did that in some places that were very embarrassing. They were really embarrassing, and it was bad. But the worst feeling I ever had leaving a so-called audition, and I had it many times, was you didn't quite lay it all out there. So, to go lay it all out there and go, who cares? And I'm still working on this, to not be near afraid of failure and taking the risk. Because so what? So what? Get up again, try it again, but don't leave it in the room. What sucks is to leave it in the room and go, I had the moment and I hesitated and I thought about it instead of just doing it. I've pulled U-turns in the middle of I-10 and gone back to auditions because I did that. Didn't get that part either, but but I had to just go, at least I can go to sleep tonight.
Someone from over here?
Yeah.
Hi, Matthew. Huge fan of yours and really enjoyed the enjoying the discussion tonight. My question is, how is it working with Harmony Korine? He's also one of my favorite directors, so I'm just curious about your experience.
He's a great impressionist. He's a great liar. He's great. Loved working with Harmony. Hand him a bunch of notes I'd work on over the weekend and come back Monday and go, what do you think of the notes? Oh, great, man. Love them. Yeah. Well, what about this part? Huh? Yeah. I was like, you didn't even read them. And he's just like, hee. It was, like I said, I was the music, he was the DJ. That was about that experience and the way he chose to go about directing that movie, and the way I chose the role was about all rhyme, no reason. And he loves to really push the envelope. And I love to go push the envelope, when it's in the context of who my man is. So it was about freedom, and it was again about oppression. He's putting together a poem, a very anarchic poem of joy along the way, and it was fun.
Awesome, thank you.
Cool.
Yes, sir. I've watched the first season of True Detective more times through than I care to admit to all these nice people here tonight. And I only made it through about 13 minutes of the second season. And so I'd just like to ask you, what do you think made that first season so successful and iconic, and with all the staying power that it has?
Writing. Dynamic of the two leads, Marty and Rustin. Man, the photography, it all was one of those ones that kind of came together and knew what it was. From the first episode, you knew it knew what it was. Now, from a character's point of view and the dynamic of Rustin and Marty, there's something that it had where, as messed up as Marty was, he was somewhat more in the audience's position. And it even lended to comedy, I thought. For when Rustin would go off on his stuff, like, what are you talking about? So he was a little bit of the straight guy, more of the straight guy, even though he was a wild, off-the-hinges character. I remember working with Woody early on, and Woody and I have done a lot of stuff together, and we're very good friends outside of work. And, when we're together, people go like, I'm not sure where you start and he ends, or I'm not sure where he starts and you end. You guys just get going, and it's perpetual motion, and we just add on to each other, Well, we're working on this, and I remember in pre-production, Woody was like, come on, man. I mean, I keep hitting you the ball, and you just like stand there. And the ball goes past you and hits the backstop, and you just let it come to rest, and you're just staring at me. And I just straight-faced him, didn't say a word. And he was like, okay. And after it was over, I was like, I got a hunch that might be kind of funny. And I think it ended up being somewhat kind of funny. But I mean, the writing, the dynamic of the characters, the fact that it was a personal story about the two of us and the dynamic between the two of us. And it didn't have a broad scope of a whole bunch of characters. It was a specific landscape, a specific place, a specific story, and these two men going through it. Yep. Yes, sir.
Hi, good evening. Truly appreciate the work you did in True Detective 1. And I remember at an awards ceremony once you said, Woody gave me some great advice. Whenever I've got a problem, I just forget about it.
Forget about it, man.
So I personally, as a regular individual, would like to take that path, but unfortunately I don't have that kind of luxury.
No, most of us don't, buddy.
So
I don't know many people that do.
Trust me on that one. So I'd like to hear about some of the times that perhaps you took that path and it worked, and other times, well, maybe perhaps you should have actually thought about it and reacted to it.
Well, get back to, remember what I said about my mother earlier. My mother and Woody, probably better friends than me and Woody. All right? Because that's my mom. I go to my mom 6 years ago. Mom, you're 80. I mean, don't you have anything? You're like the most inconsiderate person I know. Now it's like, don't you have anything that you regret? At the end of the night, don't you have anything where you're like, oh, I could have done that better? Oh my God, I mean, come on, you taught us these things, and now you break all these rules. She's like, honey, every single night when I go to bed, I have a long list of things that I write down that I could have done better, of things that I regret, of things I want to improve on. But the thing is, when I wake up in the morning, I forgot them. So they're great friends. My mom has been kicked out of bars. My mom and Woody together have been kicked out of bars for smoking joints. Like in the last 6 years. My mom's 86.
I think we have time for one more question.
Hi, Matthew.
Hello.
So I also am a huge fan of True Detective, and especially that one continuous scene where you raid the white supremacists. It's just completely harrowing and captivating. And I'm also drawn to a lot of your darker roles, and I'm curious if there's something about those darker characters that you're particularly drawn to. And also, I'm sure you have a method to get into that character, but is there a way that you detox from those really dark parts?
Well, I mean, look, the old, you don't appreciate the dark unless you got the light. You don't see the light unless you got the dark. You need the shadows. And humanity has shadows. I'm not a believer or that interested in the all-white knight or the all-black knight. I mean, that's just not how most of us are put together. And you've got someone like a Rustin Cole, and have someone who said this to me, like, you're a believer. I mean, I go to church on Sunday. You know what I mean? They're like, how this atheist? I mean, part of my faith is I think why I had so much fun going that far into this mind of a Rustin Cole, who's philosophizing existence and things like this. I mean, like I said, I wouldn't want to be trapped in his mind, but I just found him immensely interesting. When I first read the script, they had actually, I had heard they were looking to me for the Marty role, and I just went back, I was like, I get it, but man, I can't wait to hear what comes out of this guy Rustin Cole's mouth every time I turn the page. It just excited me. I loved how he put it together. I thought the writing was just hot and had fangs to it. And so, again, when the writing's good, we don't have to do as much acting per se. And so I was able to read that stuff and go, you just say it as truth. And it didn't feel like a dark place. It just felt like I was on an island. I mean, I wasn't a morose man at that time. I kept more of my thoughts to myself and was sort of much more of a loner, probably offset than maybe I would be in something like Beach Bum. The kids probably think, my kids would probably say I was a more fun dad during the shoot of a Beach Bum than True Detective. But I mean, I just was interested and intrigued with what was in this man's mind and how he put it together. And I was like, he's got a good argument. I understood how to believe everything he said. So I'd say it just was more of an introspection rather than darkness. I mean, at the end of the day, I would say Rustin Cole's the best detective that's ever walked the earth, which is not a dark thing. It's just he could toe the line further than most detectives. He wouldn't give up quicker. He had the eternal detection. He could go to a case to his grave, So in that was just an exquisite professional of a detective.
Thank you. And just to follow up, how do you remove yourself from that? I mean,
how do I remove myself?
Meditate, or
I mean, look, I enjoy the sort of the boomerang effect of leaving a darker character into something that's more light, leaving something that's really light into dark. Actually, the speed and rapidity of the extent of the threshold at which I've got to rubber band man back to the other side of myself is fun. It's limber. It makes me stretch.
Mental yoga.
Yeah, something like that, calisthenics sometimes, Marnham and Bailey even. So how do I detox from it? You do 6 months of incredibly introspective, thoughtful guy dealing with dark, real life, harrowing stuff. It's nice to go get in the sunshine, eat a cheeseburger, and have a margarita after that. and go, hey, you know, but trust me, I walk around. There's a detox. Trust me, I mean, after every character, I say that joke with my wife, that's after every role. I mean, for weeks after, I do find myself going to the bathroom, forgetting I need to take a pee. Just going, what? Oh yeah, forgot why I came in here. I mean, you look, because you get, it's your daily, it's a daily structure. It's all I've got to do. I wake up, I go to the set, I'm playing that person. And then all of a sudden, every day Saturday. And I'm like, what am I supposed to do? Who am I? It does take a little while. But I just put some pads on the walls, put on a helmet, a strap, put on a chin strap, and say, trust yourself, you'll come out of this.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I just want to say thanks to Matthew for doing this.
Thank you, Steven.
And thank you all for coming.
Thank you all for coming. Thank you. Hey, man. What's that? Yeah, right? We want to know. Hey, thanks, man.